So the interesting thing about this is that we all write songs in one facet or another. What is your individual process writing songs? I mean, do you normally write on the bass, pick up a guitar?
I do both. Obviously that my main role is as a bass player,
Sure.
and that's my forte. And so a lot of it too is writing on the bass, but hearing parts and having ideas, and usually just as a jump off point for the other band members. Obviously none of us really try to limit each other. One of the great things with technology now is how easy it is to make a demo.
Yeah.
Even if it's just hey, I have this 1 minute idea, and then just to be able to bounce it off
Sure.
each other. And so that's the thing though, like writing like in a band setting, for sure what instrumentation is going to be on there, but maybe like for yourself, when you have certain songs, you have the freedom to say this is just going to be the piano, or this
Right.
is just acoustic guitar with some pedal steel or violin, or hey, this is a full-on rock band song.
Right.
But that's for me, like I honestly feel like, especially in the midst of you guys, like I'm just like starting to scratch the surface. I mean, we all like write together, as far as the vibe of let's get in the room and jam off of each other, and that's typically how we did it before, minus a couple songs that some of us brought in individually. And now I think it's even more of that now, where it's like, hey, I had this idea,
And
especially when you have 2 years on the road, that and you're always sparking these ideas and coming up with different things.
Yeah,
But
talk about that. I mean, is there a lot of writing that goes on the bus or during sound checks or during?
Yeah, a lot of it too is like last year during the holiday season, we had this glorious extended layover in the airport, and Tyler busts out GarageBand and writes this whole Christmas tune that, and even with like the GarageBand, like drums and like little like synth bass and synth guitar,
Right.
Kind of as a a skeleton of like parts, kind of thing, but from like from the top down, had like a melody, like these counterparts, bridge, everything, and just having those opportunities to do that. And then a month later we recorded it and played it. Of course it's a Christmas song, so we play it like once.
Sure.
Do you guys have any tips or ideas, like how do you get focused for songwriting?
I think all of us kind of write a little different, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
You go first.
I'm very much like a melody kind of. I don't know about you guys, but I always write. Primarily, I'll write music and then just kind of sing gibberish kind of over the top of it, just to kind of get a skeleton of
And then
maybe
release
phrasing. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
then it goes straight to iTunes.
And you're like, what
And
is
then
he singing about?
after it's been on iTunes for about 3 months, I do a rewrite.
Yeah, and everyone's like, does anyone have any idea what Dustin's
in the
singing
world
about?
happened?
One thing that I have realized that over this last couple of years in writing songs is it is a craft. There is a process, and people have, I've realized in my own songwriting that the more that I do it, the more that I exercise those writing muscles and think about songwriting, the better I get at it. And it never really comes easy for me. It's always not painstaking, but it is
Something to work at.
It is an effort, and I've learned a lot hanging out with, obviously the talented songwriters, Paul for sure, and Dustin. It's an inspiring thing to have friends that are so good at writing songs, but it's also interesting to see, the heroes that we look to as inspiration. You really realize that it is something that takes consistent dedication to trying to make it better.
Well, that's something that you know, came up. I was watching the documentary for Noel Gallagher's new High Flying Birds, and it's him in the studio, um, actually next door to Sound Factory where Dustin and I
Yeah.
recorded years ago. But anyhow, he's talking about, you know, he's not going to act like this stuff just comes to him, and that it's, you know, he's working on it, you know, over and over and over again, and it is a process. It's not just this thing of, oh, I just woke up this morning and, you know, this fabulous song came out, you know.
Yeah.
And
That's the
it's-
exception. The song coming out, I think, is the
Yeah,
exception.
sure.
You're lucky.
Sure.
Yeah,
It just falls on
that
you.
does happen.
Great. It happens, but it's not the rule.
No, it happens when you leave the tape recorder on and you fell asleep and realized, oh, I just wrote Satisfaction or
Yeah.
Mr. Soul,
Yeah,
Right.
Mr. Soul.
kind of thing, which are very similar. So that's the thing. I mean, if something happens when you leave that tape recorder on. But what's your approach? I mean, you put on the Yankees hat, right?
Red Sox.
Just kidding. I know
Yeah.
that.
Come on, dude.
Amazing.
It's a tough year to be a Red Sox fan. The best songs and the songs that I feel like, I mean, it's always worked, just like Ryan said. But the songs for me that ever end up amounting to anything are the ones where something hits me. Whether it's a happiness or a feeling of love or a heartbreak or tragedy or just some moment kind of just like knocks me over.
Right.
And that's what I go back to. I always, like, if I get lost in the song, or we go to the song school thing in Colorado in the summers, and this guy, Daryl Scott, who's a great writer, talks about how if you ever kind of lose your way with the song, go back to the thing that moved you. That has always, any song that I'm writing, I'm really trying to get to the heart of it, find out like what's the truth. Because even if it's a really unique experience to you, if it's super personal, as long as you're telling your truth, it's going to resonate with somebody. And that to me is like my biggest challenge and my biggest goal, and also the most rewarding thing is when I'll write a song that to me feels like, oh, there's no way anyone else has like felt this. It's a lonely feeling. Like that's why a lot of people write songs, is to get something out that feels like maybe they don't understand it like they'd like to or whatever, but people come to me after a show and be like, oh, I totally get that, and I felt that, and I'm like, really? I'm sorry that you felt that.
Yeah, right.
But to me, it's all about trying to find kind of that moment that knocks you over and then figuring out how to fit it within the structure of the song.
Well, I think too, like what you were saying, as far as, you know, people being able to relate, I think that's also too like what makes, you know, some classic songs so appealing. I always think of "With or Without You" by U2. Always songs that, you know, it could apply to, you know, it could be a lady singing that, it could be a, you know, it is a man singing that, but it applies like so generally, you know, to people. And so obviously, you know, it's like that's why, you know, love is such a popular, whether it's, you know, you're in love or out of love, it's something that's so deep and emotional in there. But I think for myself, like musically, I try to find like those chords or those notes that will sometimes, you know, engage that in someone. And, you know, maybe it's in the middle of a chorus, you know, try and throw in that extra, you know, note or an inversion of, you know, in a chord that will, you know, create a little tension just for a little bit, and, you know, just to kind of give it that, you know, that push.
I'm curious, as you talk about songwriting and especially like that, finding that note in the chorus and stuff, you and I became friends bonding over stuff like Neil Young and The Who, and I know you're a huge fan of The Jam and these bands that on the surface, of course, don't seem to have a lot in common with Neon Trees. I'm curious how or if you incorporate that, because you talked about how joining Neon Trees, you kind of tipped them over to become a little more rock. Mm-hmm. You love music, so it's all this big whole, or how do you kind of approach that?
No, I think that it's, you know, when you're writing for, you know, with other band members or, you know, sharing styles, that it's just sharing music, you know,
Sure.
and finding out that you know, Elaine's two biggest influences, or growing up, were Led Zeppelin and Depeche Mode, you know, and so obviously I'm more rehearsed in Zeppelin than Depeche Mode, but you know, so there's always that common ground. Chris, our guitar player, is a huge REM fan. In addition to, you know, Joy Division and Minor Threat, which are, you know, bands I love as well. And Tyler, you know, I think the tipping point for me was finding out that he's a huge Springsteen fan, to the point where it's like he's read like every book about him, and you could name like a random deep cut on, you know, one of his records, and he'll tell you what the song's about. You know, like fanatically, you know, like huge into the guy. And
you can see that in his performances. I mean, like the legendary 3-hour Springsteen show where he's just moving the whole time. I mean, Tyler is a tireless performer. He is giving everything he has.
yeah.
So sorry to interrupt you, but I mean, you can,
No, and that's the
you can
thing, it's
spot
like,
it.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's just interesting. You know, everyone is trying to separate themselves from what is happening today, and like, you know, trying to really do their own thing. They don't want to be attached to something that maybe, you know, they're not sure if people like it or not. Sure. But it's totally okay for someone to say this record was influenced by the Stones and by Neil Young. You know, it's like these time-tested names. I want to listen to the new Coldplay record or the new Strokes record and have them, you know, pardon my French, kick my ass, sure, you know, to make me want to work harder to write, you know, good music. And not to say that, like, because I want to be the best and no one else can be. If you're gonna be lifting ideas, you know, or, you know, sounds or influence from people, I don't care if it's from, you know, 30 years ago or 2 years ago.